And what's really cool when you see all the different writers share the same story is they give little details that maybe the other guys don't give. One of the details that John gives in John chapter 6 when he describes this story is the fact that there was a little boy in the story. And he was a key player in the story. I thought I'd have a little fun and I'd give you a little fictional depiction of this little boy's day before he shows up in the story, okay? We're going to call him Joshua because John doesn't tell us his name, and Joshua was a pretty common name in those days. Joshua was a little skinny kid. Lived with his mom and 2 sisters. We're not sure what happened to his dad. And because he was slight of frame, the bullies at the Hebrew school used to kind of make fun of him and beat up on him and bully him. And so he didn't really like going to school. He got up early this morning and he gathered all the eggs from outside where the chickens were and ran inside and grabbed his little lunch that his mom had made for him and headed off to the market in Bethsaida. The market in Bethsaida that day was bustling. So many people. The fishermen had all their fresh catch laid out down by the beach. Olive oil salesmen were there, figs and dates. People were baking bread, and the smell of baked bread, the aroma just filled the air. It was so strong you couldn't smell the fish. Now that's bread. He went behind this little shack where he had this little rickety table that he used every day, and he pulled it out by the roadside, and he put his eggs out, and he waited for his normal customers to come, and they all came right on time. And all his eggs were sold by the time the sun had risen above the tops of the trees. It was time for school. But there was a rumor that the great rabbi teacher, the new young rabbi teacher, was in the vicinity. And his friends said, let's skip school and go find him. And he was really nervous. He'd never skipped school before, but he thought, well, I'm going to give it a shot. So he packed up his table behind the little shack, and off they went. It was easy to know where to go because everyone was heading out of town towards the hills. They just followed the crowd. They walked for a long time. When they came over this false peak, they saw him on the other side. And in the little valley area, there were people. It was like an amphitheater. They were all around listening to him, and he was healing sick people, and he was preaching the gospel. And they got as close to the front as they could. They actually got pretty close. And they sat down, and he was kind of looking around at the crowd and looked to the left and was mortified to see his teacher from Hebrew school staring at him. And he waved at him. That made him feel sick until he looked to the right and saw the steely eyes of his mother staring at him, and quickly stopped worrying about the repercussions because the teacher started to teach. And he was locked in. He spoke of this new kingdom. He spoke of this new way. He spoke of a Passover lamb that would be shed once and for all. He didn't quite understand that, but it was fascinating. He talked about how everyone who came to him would be given the Holy Spirit. Not just the special people that are anointed, but everyone would be given the Holy Spirit. And the teaching was so different and so new, and people were mesmerized. They were transfixed. So much so that the sun just passed through the sky. And they were there all day and didn't even realize it. The first indication he had that the day was getting a little long was the growling of his stomach. All of a sudden he realized he was just ravenous. He was close enough and the stomach was loud enough that he was concerned the teacher might hear it. So he was relieved when the teacher took a little break, sat down on a rock and had a conversation with his disciples. And he grabbed his little sack lunch and he opened up the leather pouch, and all his friends were looking in there, and so he wanted all for himself, so he snuck off to some other rocks and sat down, and he was just about to eat into one of his little loaves of bread when he felt a big strong hand on the nape of his neck, and he was pulled up to his feet, and it was Andrew, one of the disciples, and he said, "Come with me, son." And Andrew took him right up to the front, in front of everybody, right to where the rabbi was. Jesus was sitting on the rock with his feet outstretched, and the little boy was brought right next to him. Jesus looked at him and with kind eyes said, "What do you have there, son?" "Where?" "In your little pouch." "Oh, just a little lunch." "Can I see it?" "Sure." Just 5 little loaves of bread and a couple dried fish. It's awesome. Thank you, son. And then Jesus looked at the disciples and he said, feed them. Who? All of them. Jesus. What? I mean, why would God ask us to do something that is impossible?